Hey there, so I recently upgraded my camera to the R6 Mark II because of its enhanced autofocus performance. If you have an R6 Mark I, we have a very popular video all about my autofocus settings for that camera, so check that out if that's the camera you're shooting with, because there's a video dedicated to that camera body. Today we're focusing on the Mark II. So we are not going to go through every single setting. I'm just going to walk you through the settings that I think matter the most and the ones that I chose to change from the default settings that ultimately matter the most when you're shooting and you want to get the best experience. So the first thing you really need to fully understand and make sure you are utilizing with your Mark II is touch and drag. Now this feature is not exclusive to the Mark II. It's basically a mirrorless feature that was really the biggest game changer for me when I switched from the Mark IV to the R6. So I love this feature because it allows me to take my thumb and literally drag my AF point anywhere on the back of the screen when I'm shooting and focus exactly where I want to focus, because the whole screen is basically one big AF point. In order for this to work, there are a couple settings that you need to make sure you have turned on. So on the back of your camera, you're going to go to AF and you're going to go over to page 4, and you want to make sure that your touch and drag setting is actually turned on. That's the first step. If this is not turned on, nothing else matters. So the second thing you want to look at is your active touch area. So I learned from trial and error with my first R6 that I love having the entire top of the screen as my active touch area. That means that if my thumb, it just has to touch the top of the screen and it will automatically activate touch and drag so that it starts moving with my thumb. If you don't use just the top, something I ran into, an issue I ran into was my nose would activate the screen, and that's very frustrating. So if I know this is actually a very common problem for a lot of photographers. They say, I can't use touch and drag because it just automatically does things, and it's like, it's actually your cheek or your nose doing that. And so you want to make sure the top half of your screen is your active touch area. The last touch and drag setting you need to change is positioning method, and I would recommend switching it to relative. And that just means that when you are shooting like this and you are putting your thumb on the top half to activate the AF point, when you switch to vertical, it's using the top half of the vertical orientation. So you're not still having to use this part, it switches to this part. So the second thing we're going to talk about is I'm going to have you go back to page 2 of autofocus, and page 2 on autofocus, we're going to talk about your selection for a setting for your speed of servo. So which case are you going to choose? So these different cases have been around for a very long time, and I didn't really know that they had been around for a very long time, and you can make fun of me for that in the comment section, but the reason why was because before mirrorless, I honestly didn't use servo very much. I had no reason to use servo. It wasn't super reliable, and I was doing focusing and recomposing so often that servo was not going to serve me well. So now that servo is more of my default than it is the exception, now this matters more to me. So within these different cases, there's basically just two things that they are allowing you to change, and that's 1, tracking sensitivity, and 2, your acceleration and deceleration tracking. And so they're going to give you a few scenarios of different settings for these. And so for me, I am testing out if I like case 3. Especially when I'm photographing families. So I'm testing that out. And I can't say that I can 100% promise that I'm going to stay on case 3 forever. It's something that I'm diving into. If you find yourself struggling with not feeling like your camera's tracking your subjects fast enough, maybe you're photographing families or sports and you want to try out case 3, so everything's going to be elevated and sped up just a little bit. So that's something that you could try. It may fix that problem for you. But if you are not struggling with that certain issue and you're just getting started with maybe your Mark II or with mirrorless in general, then just keep it on case 1 and try out case 3 later if that becomes a problem. The next thing we're going to talk about is orientation linked AF points. So basically what this setting does is it allows you, if you are shooting vertical and your AF point is here, as soon as you go back to horizontal, it's remembering where that AF point was last time you were shooting in horizontal, and it will jump the AF point right to that point. So it's saving you time. Why not turn it on? So to turn this on, you're going to AF and you are going over to page 4 again, and you're going to go down to orientation linked AF point, and you're going to go down to the third option, separate AF points, point only. You're going to turn that on. So a lot of these settings that I've been mentioning are not necessarily unique to the Mark II, but this next setting that I'm mentioning is, and I don't even like it. It's not my favorite. So this setting is called the whole area tracking Servo AF. And basically what it does is it puts this annoying blue box everywhere and it takes away my control. And I love to be in control, so I don't like it. So basically when you are in servo mode and you are focusing on something and you put your AF point on something, it notices the object and then it creates a box around the object. And that box is going to be different sizes based on how big the object is. And it basically just locks into it and tracks it. This is great for some people. I just don't like it. It makes me feel like My camera is doing its own thing and I'm at the mercy of whatever it decides is important, and I hate that. And it's important to recognize that this feature is not the same as eye detection or eye tracking. So if you're thinking like, oh yeah, I'm going to turn off all of that, don't do that, because we're about to talk about that next. This is a completely different thing. It's not tracking eyes, it's not tracking faces, it's latching onto objects and locking in focus and tracking, and that's what I don't like. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to AF first page. You're going to go all the way down to right in the middle, and it says whole area tracking Servo AF, and you're going to click on that and you're going to turn it off. And then you're going to thank me later if you're a control freak like me, because it's going to make everything easier. So what we're going to talk about next is kind of like this umbrella feature of eye tracking. And so I love eye tracking, and it is something that they've really changed the way they handled it with the Mark II. And so there are things that I love and there are some things that I don't love. And so I'm going to break down the setting adjustments that I've done for me that works well for the way that I shoot. It is important to note that the eye tracking is improved. It is faster, it's more reliable on the Mark II than the original R6. And it is a really great feature, so it's worth it to figure out how to get this feature to work for you the way that you feel comfortable. So the default setting for eye tracking with the Mark II is to automatically have eye tracking on as a default. And so whenever you put your camera up to your face, it is automatically going to try to detect an eye somewhere. So when you are in your AF settings on page 1 and you scroll down to subject to detect, I have it set to none. And I also have eye detection disabled, but let me explain that. The reason for that, it's not that I don't use eye tracking, it's that I don't have my camera set to constantly be finding faces and people. And the reason for that is because my theme, if you've noticed, my theme is that I like staying in control. And so I have eye detection turned on, but I only want to use it when I want to use it. I don't need to have a blue square tracking people constantly. I have it set to where I can use that whenever I want to. So I've turned off those things. It may not be that that's what you prefer, but for me, I just don't need it constantly. I just don't need that. What I've done instead is that I have gone into settings and I've changed for this star, snowflake, asterisk, whatever you want to call it. This is my eye detection, like eye tracking button. And whenever I want to have my camera track faces and lock into the subject on their eye, I push right here. And I use this way more when I'm photographing families than when I'm photographing anything else, because it's fast paced and it's a little bit chaotic, and I like for my camera to be doing that fast work for me. So I like the setup because in my opinion, it's best of both worlds. So I can use the upgraded, fast, accurate capabilities of the Mark II's eye detection and eye tracking by just clicking the button when I want to use it, but when I don't want it, or if it's freaking out, I can let go and go back to normal where I'm totally in control. So let me tell you how to change that in case you want to try this setting for yourself. So you're going to go to the back of your camera, you're going to go all the way over to the brownish orange camera tab, and then you're going to go over to page 3, and then go down to customize buttons, and you're going to select that, and then you're going to find your star, basically the AE lock button, eye detection AF. That is what I'm selecting for that, and you should be good to go. Okay, so don't leave the screen yet, because we're going to change one more button setting on the screen. So like I said before, I like to stay in control of my camera, but I also have made a big shift with mirrorless from my Mark IV that I am constantly using servo more than one shot. And so what I've done is that I've basically taken the checker button and I have set that to be able to go back and forth from servo to one shot with just one little click. So I love it because I don't even have to look. I can feel, I can go back and forth between those two settings seamlessly. And just so you know, if you are going back and forth between servo and one shot, or you want to start shooting that way, little unknown fact to me is that when you're shooting on servo, your focus is going to be blue. And when you're shooting in one shot, it's going to be green. I've been just fine not knowing that piece of information, but now it makes a lot more sense. And I love it because, wow, I can just tell what mode I'm shooting in by the color of my AF point, which is probably the whole point of Canon's reasoning behind that. So there's that.
Can confirm. That is the point.
Can confirm.
That is the whole point.
So this is just the way that I do it. And it does not need to be the way that you do it, but at least now you know what my preferences are, and you can test them out to see if it works for you. So my goal is I want to stay in control, and if I don't want to be fully in control, I want to be able to switch over to that mode and let my camera take over as quickly and as easily as possible. And so this system works well for me, and it allows me to shoot the way I thrive, which is very fast, high emphasis on composition, and I'm moving around a lot, and I just need that flexibility and control to be able to shoot in the KJ way. If you love it, great. We can be twinsies with our settings, and if you want to change something, I hope with this explanation of why I made certain adjustments, you'll know whether or not you want to make the adjustment as well. If there are other questions you have, leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed it, leave it in the comments. If you want more, like and subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. Have a great day. Bye.